but Beethoven sets up Romanticism, which is really our exploration today. And my personal view of this, of Romanticism, is that it is much larger than a lot of people think it is. I think Romanticism actually encapsulates a good part of the 20th century, as opposed to being like separate time periods. When we look at Romanticism, I see that as involving or including post-Romanticism. Because to me, post-Romanticism and the things that we're going to talk about today are all based on the same values of Romanticism. They're just pushing the envelope further and further and further out to the French until they basically go right off the edge. I believe that the age that we're living in now should be called pluralism. And I'm a little bit unique on this, but I think in time, I believe that's what it will be called. Everything now is more than one thing. It's a combination of a little of this and a little of that. Something new, something old, something borrowed, something blue. I got the order wrong on that, but you know basically what I'm trying to say. That's kind of the modern age. So when we look at Romanticism, and we look at what Beethoven helped usher in Romanticism in music, there are some big changes. And that's the key word to kind of remember, that Beethoven is larger. He's expanding things. He's made the formal structures of things bigger. Remember that the symphonies of Beethoven are much larger and longer than the symphonies of Haydn and Mozart. They're louder, they're quieter, they're more developed. There's just more, there's more sound, and then there's more emotion. So there's a lot of things that Beethoven ushers in musically that simply stick. And so Beethoven, he's a really interesting figure. He's born in 1770 in Bonn, dies in 1827. When he's 17, he goes to Vienna and he gets to meet Mozart, which is pretty cool. And in the characteristics of Beethoven's style, I start with the extremes meet, the sublime and the grotesque. And I love the word grotesque. It's such a romantic word. It really is. And that's not really an exaggeration. If we look at Symphony number 9, we see that sublime and maybe grotesque doesn't seem as fitting, but in comparison to Haydn's creation, for example, Symphony number 9 is like way over the top. I mean, it's a lot more. I mean, there's a chorus in the symphony. I mean, it's almost more than a symphony. He's really breaking the boundaries. And the same thing happens in Missa Solemnis. And a Missa Solemnis is basically solemn mass, high solemn mass, make it big. The opposite of it would be a Missa brevis, or a short mass. And so I think you can feel right away the expression, the difference in emotion. He starts big, then he goes really quiet, and then he slowly builds it back up again, building this drama. These are the indications that this is a romantic work and not still something of the generation of Mozart and Haydn. John Eliot Gardner gets it. See why I like this guy so much? Did you hear those extremes? Big chorus entrance. Then intimate soloist gets a line. big chorus entrance. Soloist gets a line. So everything is bigger, louder, longer, more massive. Beethoven is still using the same formal structures, basically binary form, rounded binary form, sonata allegro form. If you don't know what these forms are, that's okay. He's basically taking, he's not developing new layouts. He's not developing new floor plans. He's simply taking the older floor plans and enlarging them like they do on HDTV and the BBC and all of these great shows. They're adding on to the property. They're making it bigger. They're making it more modern, making it, but not building something completely from scratch, not a whole new layout for a house. That's coming later. So, he's building on those forms and making them larger, but they're still the same forms. He starts to eliminate the gap between movements of things sometimes. Sometimes it just feels really good to go from the end of the third movement, instead of having that end, which is a much more Baroque or classical idea. Why not take that energy and keep it going? You just go right into the fourth movement. And so we start to see this blurring of the lines. He's still using the same structures, but he's starting to blur things together so that when you're analyzing this stuff, it doesn't come as easily. And see, look how much easier this is to follow. I just love that example. But did you hear how there's just no break? He's just ending up winding down that brilliant third movement of the Fifth Symphony and just going right into the fourth. Bum, 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 bum. And so no break. And that's somewhat revolutionary. By the time we get to, the late Romantics, what we're going to see a lot more of are, like tone poems. And a tone poem, like a Strauss tone poem, has no break in it at all. It's all a single movement work, blurring the lines, which I think is a great marker for how we've really evolved things in Romanticism. And Beethoven loved writing string quartets. He loved writing this music because he's writing this music for Cream. This is like, Eric Clapton. He's writing music for the best professional musicians. Those are the people that were going to play this in these small chamber settings. So he's really writing very expressively. So Beethoven the master is really Beethoven the developer. Beethoven's music really appeals to audiences on many levels. But those who know music are more likely to understand and appreciate the complex relationships between all of the components in his works, and to enjoy the crafty combination of tradition and innovation, which are intertwined. That's what Beethoven really is, but that's really what everybody's going to want to become after him. You can't put Pandora back in her box. Once this idea of expressing your emotions so beautifully and wonderfully in music, and the audiences were very receptive to this. People leaving crying, people emotionally involved during the performance. So this was setting fire to people's minds. What Beethoven ushers in, these ideas of change, I mean, he's really the Napoleon of music, benevolently. He's bringing these ideas that aren't necessarily his ideas to begin with. He's building on other things. And he's kind of like, look what I do. Look how I expand this and do this and express myself. And people were like, wow, I got to do that too. Or I love that, or they're drawn to this. But it takes key figures, models, paradigms, who maybe suffered great losses in order to get to the point where they are. But those people then inspired, propelled ideas that people wanted to hear.